Hi everyone, welcome to the recording of our webinar on remanufacturing and the circular economy. My name is Rajiv Ramchandra and I'm the founder and director of Recreate. I was also the host and moderator of the webinar. If you are viewing this webinar for the first time, welcome. If you were present during our live event, you'll notice that the setting in this recording is a little different. We experienced some unexpected technical challenges during the live event, and as a result, decided to replace the beginning portion of the webinar with newly recorded video which covers the same content. My sincere apologies to our speakers and listeners for the inconvenience the technical challenges caused. We are working to ensure our future events run more smoothly. We are very pleased to have hosted this webinar and to have brought together experts and thought leaders to share their perspective on the circular economy and remanufacturing in India. We see this webinar as foundational in that its central premise is to present a clear picture of what remanufacturing is, what it isn't, and how it fits into the evolving circular economy landscape in India. In that sense, we paint the proverbial picture in broad brushstrokes and don't get too deep into the technical aspects of remanufacturing. Instead, we provide a bird's eye view of its benefits, limitations, job creation potential, and how it ties into India's aspirations towards becoming a resource-efficient, circular, and self-reliant economy. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to our speakers. Our first speaker is Dr. René Van Berkel. René is the India representative of the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, or UNIDO. Previously, René was the UNIDO Unit Chief of Cleaner and Sustainable Production and was responsible for UNIDO's contribution to the Global Resource Efficient and Cleaner Production, or RECP program. This program is operational in some 50 emerging and developing countries. Between 1999 and 2006, he was Australia's first full professor of cleaner production at Curtin University of Technology in Perth, and between 1989 and 1999, he held various research and leadership positions at the University of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Our second speaker is Yorien de Ruijter. Yorien is the Director of Remanufacturing Events at RAI Amsterdam. Yorien leads the Rematech trade show portfolio, which is the world's largest remanufacturing industry platform, and hosts the largest remanufacturing industry expo in Amsterdam every 2 years. Yorien has been with RAI Amsterdam since 2015 in different roles, ranging from operations manager to sales manager to exhibition manager. Yorien joined the Rematech team in 2017 and has become a familiar face in the global remanufacturing industry. She has been involved in the organization of 4 Rematech exhibitions, 2 of which took place in Amsterdam, 1 in Las Vegas, and 1 in Asia. Our third speaker, who is joining us in the role of a panelist, is Anirban Ghosh, Chief Sustainability Officer at the Mahindra Group. Acknowledged as a thought leader and a distinguished sustainability officer, Anirban leads sustainability at the Mahindra Group, which is a $20.7 billion federation of companies. Under his leadership, Mahindra has developed an award-winning sustainability framework, helped double per capita income for 20,000 Indians, has been a founding member of the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition, and is striving to become a zero waste to landfill organization. Among his many accomplishments, Anirban, in partnership with the World Bank, facilitated the creation of the Sustainable Housing Leadership Consortium to accelerate the spread of green buildings in India. We are grateful to all our speakers for having given so generously of their time and hope you find the content and discussion of value. We look forward to hearing from you and to answer any questions you may have, or if you'd like to engage with us in other ways. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to talk on the topic of remanufacturing from the perspective of its contributions to the circular economy. I'm René Van Berkel. I represent the United Nations Industrial Development Organization at its regional office in India. UNIDO is the specialized agency of the UN system that supports the developing country member states to industrialize. We have been more than 50 years in India working on technical areas in support of MSME development. Right now, we are focused very much on inclusive and sustainable industrialization, which is linked to the Sustainable Development Goal 9. So we're talking about inclusive and sustainable industrial development that brings economic competitiveness, creates shared prosperity, and sustains environment. So it's industrialization that works for markets. We have products that can be sold, are sought after in markets. We take care of people with decent work, and we observe the planetary boundaries with taking care of environment and climate. We are certainly building back from the crisis that has been caused by the pandemic, and we see that this will likely result in a new normal for manufacturing systems. So we see transformation of global production and consumption systems, which might be driven by three main drivers or overarching concerns. The first one's being resilience, focusing on the interconnectedness in the value chains, and we might want to see companies to de-stress or de-bottleneck their supply chain so they are less dependent on international supplies. And we see digitization. We have actually witnessed quite rapid uptake of digital solutions in the last 4 to 6 months, and this might also proceed further on, so more Industry 4.0 related solutions. And last but not least, a transition towards circular, or I would say that circular or green environment and sustainability initiatives. So coming to the circular, the basic driving force is that we live beyond planetary means. So if we take the ecological footprint as a measure of the total environmental impact, we see that we currently use about 1.7 planet Earth a year, and that of course is not sustainable. As of about August, we are using resources which are meant to be used in the next year. So we need to address that, and that is highlighted in the concept of economic or resource decoupling economic development from increased natural resource consumption and aggravated negative environmental impacts. We're talking about doing more, so creating more economic activity with less use of resources and economic environmental impact, and for more human well-being. We can then see different interpretations of the circular economy. So on the one hand side, we see the Ellen MacArthur Foundation coming with the more physical model and saying that the circular economy is restorative and regenerative, so it gets away from the take, make, and dispose society to take, make, use, and reuse society. So circular materials to regenerate natural systems and to design out waste and pollution. We see also other interpretations, particularly by the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, that say that circular economy is a new way of looking at relationship between markets, customers, and natural resources. So it looks at new business models and disruptive technologies to transform the linear towards a circular economic model. So if we look at this interpretation, and basically they're talking about 5 business models combined with 3 disruptive technologies. So the 5 business models are circular supply, so using renewable materials and energy, product as a service, so no longer the ownership of a product, but utilizing the service it's providing, resource recovery, so that's recycling and recovery of materials at the end of the life cycle, a sharing platform, so increase the intensity of use by having multiple users of the same product, and product lifetime extension is extending the working life of products. That's combined with disruptive technologies, which are particularly around digitalization, physical, mainly nanotechnologies, 3D printing, and biological or biotechnologies, but also enzymes and related bio-derived technologies. Circular is recycling according to something like the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. That has become the 6 R's, with adding refuse and rethink and repair. That has become the 12 R's, where remanufacturing services. But above all, I think that the circular does not equal a recycling. It's much beyond that. It aims at zeroing out waste in the design phase. So that brought us already to the topic of remanufacturing. So if I take a dictionary definition, then it is to manufacture into a new product. But this can also have different interpretations, and I think the American National Standards Institute has come with a definition that states it's comprehensive and rigorous industrial process by which a previously sold, leased, used, worn, or non-functional product or part is returned to a like new or better than new condition from both a quality and performance perspective through a controlled and reproducible, sustainable process. So the key part is that it becomes an industry, so it's done in a replicable manner, and you get a quality at least equal to the new or better than that. So coming back to circular economy, there's a good business case for this. The World Business Council expected that the circular economy presents a 4.5 trillion business opportunity by 2030. There have been different reports by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation for India and China. So in India, it could be about $218 billion annual value by 2050. That is about 8% of the economy. Reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 23% by 2030, and equivalent of 22% share of the total SDG opportunity. In China, the opportunity is slightly bigger because of its larger scale of the economy, and you might also see there more middle class lifestyle for more urban dwellers, and reduction in traffic congestion, and reduction in air or improvement in air quality. I think that from a manufacturer perspective, we often say that this is an innovation agenda, the circular economy. And I would like to highlight that with the three notions of resource shift, so maximizing the substitution of non-renewable materials and resources by going renewables, then looking at resource efficiencies and improved efficiency of the use of all resources, and then the perpetuality or circularity of value recovery from all waste. So let me elaborate on each of those three with a few examples. So go renewables, that is basically resourcing man-made systems, so industrial systems up to nature's capability by using nature as an input. So using renewables instead of non-renewables as material, energy, water, land, biodiversity, and at rates which are comparable with the natural long-term availabilities in nature. But we can also look at nature as a mentor, so model man-made processes on the basis of natural processes. And that's typically the area of what is known as biomimicry or green chemistry and green engineering. Just a few examples. So using renewables might also be opportunities in the areas of solar heating. So you see here advanced dryer for fruits, vegetables, and spices, or you can look at the same solar heating of industrial process, because we can use this concentrated solar thermal, which can achieve temperatures up to 350, 400 degrees, and which covers 52% of the industrial heat use that can be potentially substituted by solar thermal energy. Using nature as an inspiration, we can look at water purification systems without chemicals or energy, just making use of materials, using enzymes or biocatalysts, for example, for production of antibiotics at room temperature, so no need to cool or heat up, without solvents and at higher efficiency. Or this company which has engineered flames in a horizontal way, which improves heat transfer and saves 30% of fuel. So these are really examples derived from nature and replicated in industrial products. So then the second strategy is this relentlessly practicing efficiency through what you could say resource efficient and clean production, which UNIDO and other agencies have been promoting. So it starts with improving the efficiency of use of materials, water, and energy, so more dollars per kilogram of material or per kilowatt hour of energy. And if we do that, we have less stuff which we can throw into the environment, so we have less waste, effluents, and emissions. And if we do that, we improve the working conditions, occupational and community health and well-being, and that adds to improved productivity. We can say this is a virtuous, self-nurturing synergy that we can establish with resource-efficient and cleaner production. So if we look at that, this RSCP as a different type of solutions, can start with simple housekeeping opportunities, or it can also go into more advanced technology changes or better process control or useful byproducts. This is quite well established technology, and basically this is 8 different lenses by which manufacturing process can be improved. Just a few examples from UNIDO's work. Kanpur, a leather development project which was completed in 2018, and then we introduced some new technologies, clean leather technology, so alternative to hair removal from the skins, which reduces then salinity and effluent load by 30%. Here you see installation of water measurements and which monitoring of water use, which leads to 20% water consumption. And then here you see some solar dryers, so we can save 10% of energy by solar air drying of the leather. Then the third one is the perpetual recycling, and that is basically looking at how the man-made system can be incorporated into the natural ecosystem. And that is basically a multi-pronged agenda to recover value from previously discarded waste. So full recovery of materials, water and energy in all life cycle stages, with the purpose of perpetually retain the man-made materials in man-made systems. So things which we have synthesized and which are not natural should be kept in man-made systems. And things we have borrowed from as natural materials from the environment, we can return and let nature absorb them there. We need to take, of course, care of the environmental risks. And particularly, we have a high material complexity of the different waste streams. And then, of course, we need to look at the conducive policy frameworks for that. This is also already done. I just take a few examples from textile first. If you see Arvind, denim manufacturer in India, they do already 70% water reuse, 50% of their fuels is organic material, and all the new jeans are 20% recycled fiber, and they do salt recovery. Or you can go with this no waste t-shirts, which are 100% post-consumer recycled knitwear. Or we can look at creating wealth out of waste, and there we have such eco-innovations that produce biodegradable sanitary pads from just waste banana fiber. We have alphabetical, which produces omega-3 fatty acids, which are a nutrachemical from the waste that is left over after you extract the silk from the silkworms. And then we have Bristle, which is extracting a silica additives from rice husk ash, which can be added to tires to reduce the rolling resistance and save energy when the car is driving on the road. We can extend this reuse and recycling into industrial parks, where basically we say that we optimize water and energy use and reuse between companies in industrial park, or we look at using secondary resources from industries, from cities, from the region into industries. And that is the work of area of eco-industrial parks, which UNIDO and the World Bank and GIZ have provided guidelines for and which can be utilized. I want to then maybe as a last input refer to the work of the International Resources Panel, and they talk about remanufacturing in the context of value retention process, or VRTs. And they say that if you look at new manufacturing, it's manufactured and then it goes to end of life. If it's remanufactured, it goes to end of first use and then be remanufactured to a new end of use, and then maybe after several end of uses it becomes end of life. If you see refurbishment, it is also extended, but it might have lost some of the functionality, minor loss. So these are full value retention processes. And then we have partial service life retention value recovery processes, which is where you have at end of use, you arrange for direct reuse. So you extend the useful lifetime before it's being disposed of, repaired, and you basically after manufacturing you undertake some repair activities, and refurbishment, which is a more limited form of extended value lifetime. So they looked at 3 case studies on what is then the impact. So they look at vehicle parts and heavy duty equipment parts. So that is for tractors and excavators, and then at industrial and digital printers. And they found that the greenhouse gas reduction of these value retention processes is in the range of 79 to 99%. Material conservation is 89%, and remanufacturing can go up to 100% with reuse. And then the cost savings are estimated, but very different between different products, 15 to 80%. Overall, it seems that this value retention is enabled by innovative business models, which include product service systems, products as a service, sharing economy. This was basically the new business models which the World Business Council was talking about for circular economy. And it's driven then, of course, also by new product design process and priorities. So if you're looking for value retention, make something durable, upgradable, and it's something that can be easily repaired. So I would like to come to a closing and say that the circular economy can mean different things to different people, yet goes always much beyond recycling. It's not recycling or recycling plus. It is a way of design. It is designed in and provides a new lens for business, product, and process innovation. This may then evolve or be achieved through remanufacturing, which I would say as industrialized, what we know as repair and refurbishment practices. Industrialized and meaning that it is a quality, replicable, it's decent work, and it guarantees at least equal, if not better. And that we see as we promote manufacturing, we should also promote as a natural twin the remanufacturing approaches. I apologize for having to go relatively quick through this. There are more materials available in the different initiatives that UNIDO is part of. Overall, I think that remanufacturing is really a key opportunity that should be looked at in terms of both transition to a circular economy as well as establishing a world-class manufacturing hubs. Thank you very much.
So, building on what René shared with us, what I'd like to do over the next 15 to 20 minutes is cover the basics of remanufacturing and go over things like what the process of reman looks like with some examples, specifically talk about what remanufacturing isn't, cover potential benefits, and touch on some global statistics, which I'm sure Yorien will provide greater details on. Instead of starting with the definition, I thought I'd start with an example to give you a sense of what remanufacturing looks like in practice. This diagram is from a company called Ivor Searle in the UK, which remanufactures engines. As you can see, step one on the diagram starts with the assumption that the core, which is the engine that is to be remanufactured, has already been procured, so reverse logistics isn't included in this diagram. However, it does show the systematic steps and processes involved, like disassembly, inspection, storage, ensuring that the parts meet the original specifications using processes and methods like grinding, machining, and boring. When reassembly takes place, it's worth noting that this is done in accordance with standards, either specific to remanufacturing or in accordance with original assembly guidelines, meeting all the checks, tests, and quality requirements as an originally manufactured product. In that sense, once a core has been fully disassembled, and by core again we mean the product or part that is to be remanufactured, once it's been disassembled, cleaned, and processed to a point where it's ready to be reassembled back together, from that point on, the process it follows is actually quite similar to the one that a new product would follow. So if we were to look at the remanufacturing process in a more general way, it starts with procuring the product to be remanufactured, which is reverse assembly, or reverse logistics, excuse me, followed by disassembly, inspection, repairing or replacing or upgrading of parts, the reassembly process, finishing, and quality testing before it re-enters the supply chain. It's also worth noting here that the product doesn't necessarily have to go back to the original user, but could be sold back to anyone in the market. Another important point to note is that remanufactured products are sold with a warranty that is equivalent to a new product and often cost 40 to 60% less than what a new product would cost. So where does remanufacturing fit into the economy? Let's start by talking about the traditional linear economic model a little, in which there is, conceptually speaking at least, a linear flow of materials from raw material extraction to production to usage and ultimately to disposal. In reality, that's not the case in an absolute sense because many products go through multiple life cycles through reuse and repair, even if they were not intentionally designed that way. And this is really the danger of linearity, is that it doesn't account for things like multiple life cycles, ease of material recovery, ease of disassembly, in a fundamental product and system design kind of way. Remanufacturing comes into play at the end of use or end of life of a product, as you can see on the far right of the linear economy diagram. And its success is contingent on not just product design, but on, like I said before, process, system, and business model design. Many of you may be familiar with the butterfly diagram of the circular economy developed by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which shows where remanufacturing fits into the circular economy landscape. As you can see, it's on one of the outer loops. And it's an important point to note because in some cases, repair and reuse might be preferable in extending the life of a product as opposed to remanufacturing. Putting it all together, this is the formal definition of remanufacturing based on the standard approved by the American Standards, American National Standards Institute in 2017. Key points to reiterate, it's a comprehensive and rigorous industrial process. It brings products back to a like new or better than new condition, both from a quality and performance standpoint, and it follows a controlled, reproducible, and sustainable process. Now that we've talked about what remanufacturing is, we can sharpen the focus of our understanding by contrasting it against what it isn't. When talking about the circular economy, there are many words that are used, ranging from reuse, repair, recycling, refurbishing, reconditioning to remanufacturing. Part of the challenge here is that these words get jumbled together and end up getting used interchangeably, which simply isn't accurate. Just quickly talking about a couple of these. Recycling means material recovery. That's it. It doesn't take into account the form or shape or function of a product or part. It's simply about recovering something which then gets broken down, possibly to its constituent molecules or compounds, and then gets reconstituted back into a different product or part altogether. Refurbishing and reconditioning perhaps come closest to remanufacturing, but they do not carry the same rigor as remanufacturing. And what you get as a final outcome through either of these processes is very dependent on the interpretation of who's doing the refurbishing or reconditioning and what that means to them. Now, for something to be remanufacturable, certain criteria need to be met. This list is from research conducted by Boston University. It isn't an exhaustive list, but outlines some parameters that need to be considered and met at, say, the product and the market level for remanufacturing to be a self-sustaining industry. The specific technologies, methods, and market conditions will vary from industry to industry and perhaps from product to product within the same industry. What can be said is that economies of scale will play an important role along with the efficacy of reverse logistics networks and product design. You've already heard me use the term core a few times here. This is the formal definition of a core based on the same ANSI standard. In essence, a core is a product or component that is ready to be remanufactured. It's critical to develop reverse logistics systems that can handle the core with care to ensure that maximum value can be retained. A core is absolutely not the same as scrap. At the policy level, this definition and various others in relation to waste categorizations will become important to ensure that cores don't fall under those same definitions and categorizations of waste or materials to be harvested for recycling. So what are some of the benefits of remanufacturing? According to the information compiled by the Center for Remanufacturing and Reuse in the UK, there are several. Again, these are broad categories, and the specific impact in terms of, say, job creation or reductions in raw material consumption, reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, are going to be dependent on some of the same factors like product design, etc. Given where the Indian economy is, the job creation potential needs to be underscored here, as well as how remanufacturing can tie into the country's sustainability, resource conservation, and resource efficiency aspirations. Not too long ago, a report that was published by the International Resource Panel, which is a global science policy platform established by UNEP, estimated that about 79 to 99% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions can be achieved through the remanufacturing of a component compared to a newly manufactured component. The same report also said that an average reduction of 80 to 98% can be achieved in the use of raw materials when remanufacturing industrial equipment compared to producing it new. Additionally, a 2018 study by the International Labour Organization estimated that by 2030, 24 million new jobs could be created globally if the appropriate policies are established to promote a greener economy. And of those 24 million jobs, 6 million jobs could be created by transitioning to a circular economy, which includes remanufacturing. I agree that these estimations need to be taken with a grain of salt. The projections are obviously dependent on the methodology used and the assumptions made to arrive at the estimates. However, they are not insubstantial either in terms of numbers, and perhaps it's worth looking at them as aspirational. I wanted to go over one more example in relation to remanufacturing, and this is pertinent to the growing industry of electric mobility in India and around the world. Over the last few years, in India alone, several government-led initiatives have been announced to advance electric mobility, such as the National Electric Mobility Mission Plan 2020, the Faster Adoption and Manufacturing of Hybrid and Electric Vehicles Scheme, or the FAME India scheme, and the Phased Manufacturing Program for Electric Mobility put out by the Department of Heavy Industry in 2019. Electric vehicles are typically powered by lithium-ion batteries, and electric vehicle batteries, or EVBs, get replaced when their capacity reduces to 80% or below of the original capacity. When EVBs reach the end of their use phase of their life cycle, there are at least 4 options in terms of end-of-life or end-of-use options. Disposal is the least preferred, but may be necessary if the battery is damaged beyond recovery or repair, and even material recovery is impossible, say in the case of a fire. Recycling is material recovery, which is the next option. Repurposing is the third, where batteries that have been retired from being used as EVBs are used as stationary power storage units to store energy from renewable sources like solar and wind. The remanufacture of EVBs was specifically discussed at an online symposium hosted by the Trier University of Applied Sciences in Germany a couple of months back. And what was discussed was that while originally battery manufacturers did not design for remanufacturability, they are actually doing so now. What's interesting about lithium-ion batteries is that they're made up of cells, and the overall capacity of the battery is dependent on the weakest cell. So to ensure that the batteries meet the use requirements, they tend to be over-engineered. And as a result, by replacing even one cell, the weakest cell, the overall battery capacity can go back up into the range that is appropriate for use in electric vehicles, as opposed to, say, repurposing. And obviously, from a cost and resource extraction and use perspective, the implications can be quite significant. I quickly wanted to touch on the global remanufacturing industry size, just to give some context. Many of you may already be familiar with these numbers. And I'm sure Yorien will get into more details in her presentation. But the point that I wanted to make is that it's a well-established industry in various countries. And the markets are also established. It's been around for decades, depending on which specific sector you look at. And as a result, the technologies, methods, processes, engineering know-how are quite developed and advanced as well. In the US and the European Union, it accounts for close to 2% of production, and pre-COVID estimates suggested that those numbers were going to go up. Remanufacturing does occur in India, but in only a handful of industries. The main industries that we know of that are engaged in reman are the IT industry and the heavy-duty and off-road vehicle manufacturing industry. In the IT industry, the main products that are remanufactured are printer cartridges, but the sector is largely unregulated, and as a result, quality varies and counterfeiting is quite likely to be common. In the heavy-duty off-road vehicle industry, Volvo remanufactures construction equipment for the domestic market in India, and Cummins operates two separate remanufacturing facilities, one for the domestic market and the other for the export market. In the electronics remanufacturing industry, a company by the name of Core-Centric Solutions operates a research facility in the city of Pune in Maharashtra state. The bottom line is that the full extent of legitimate remanufacturing is not clearly known in India. Part of the challenge is that the National Industrial Classification categorizes companies that remanufacture under traditional manufacturing codes. This is not unique to India as an issue. As part of our research goals, what we're interested in looking into is how to develop a clear understanding in numbers of the size and composition of the remanufacturing industry in India, perhaps through proxy indicators or other metrics. The data on this slide is a little bit old, but it gives a sense of the industries and the number of product areas in each industry in which remanufacturing occurs. As you can see, the industries range from automotive to electrical and electronic products to medical equipment and office furniture. My sense is that globally the numbers are probably higher today and probably include more industries and product categories that are listed here. So we're almost at the end of my presentation. This slide provides a high-level view of manufacturing in India, ranging from food production to pharmaceutical manufacturing to motor vehicles. What I've done is highlighted in red the industries that already undertake remanufacturing or have the greatest potential to do so. Of particular note is the mobility of our transportation industry, the electronics manufacturing industry, which recently received support to boost mobile phone manufacturing in India, as well as medical device and medical equipment manufacturing, which is categorized under other manufacturing at the bottom right-hand corner of column 3, especially given where we are with the pandemic. The last thought that I want to leave you with is that design is fundamental to the greater adoption of not just remanufacturing, but the overall transition to circularity in any economy. And we're not just talking about product design. The design of the systems, the business models, the broader environment of stakeholders matter a lot. Inculcating life cycle thinking in every aspect is critical, as well as the alignment of incentives and infrastructure, bringing greater awareness to markets and engaging stakeholders across the spectrum. So this brings me to the end of my presentation. I hope you found the information useful. Please feel free to reach out to me in case you have any questions or would like to discuss any of the material presented today. Thank you for your attention.
First of all, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. In the upcoming 15 to 20 minutes, I will give you a presentation about global remanufacturing. I will talk about the 3 largest markets. We'll tell you a bit of the history, the trends, but also the increasing markets. But first of all, let me quickly tell you something a bit about myself and what Rematec is doing. My name is Yorien de Ruijter, and I'm the director of the remanufacturing events at RI Amsterdam. That means that I'm responsible for the platform Rematec. Rematec consists of 4 categories. One is Rematec Amsterdam, which is our oldest trade show. It started in 2001 and welcomes 77 nationalities every 2 years. At the show, it's possible to network, gather knowledge, do business, etc. The next Rematec Amsterdam will be in 2022, the 14th till the 16th of June. Then we have one of our newest exhibitions, which is Rematec Asia. This year will be the 2nd edition, which will be held the 11th till the 13th of October, and is organized every year. Rematec Asia is a international exhibition. However, this year, because of COVID-19, that is impossible because we are not able to travel to China. Therefore, for this year, it will be more nationally focused. Then we have a new event, which is called Rematec Live and Connected, which will be held in March 2021. Rematec Live and Connected is a hybrid event. This means that you're able to attend it online. However, you're also able to attend it live in Amsterdam. And we have Rematec News. Rematec News is the remanufacturing news platform where we hand out a newsletter every 2 weeks, and we also post quite a lot on social media. But this is a short explanation on what we do at Rematec. And before I start on the global perspective on remanufacturing, I would like to show the next slides. Sorry. This slide, the next slide is missing, I see. I wanted to explain to you what Rajiv and René were also saying, that there's quite some confusion about the definition of remanufacturing and other activities like repair, refurbishment, reconditioning, or reuse. They are often used in different ways, and they actually vary from country to country and also from company to company. Rematec is mainly focusing on automotive and the heavy duty industry. So if I'm using any examples, that will be mostly about these 2 industries. I would like to show the 3 largest markets, which is the United States, Europe, and China. In the US is actually the most well-developed and largest remanufacturing industry in the world. There has been a research where in 2011, where they say they have a 43 billion turnover, and they also claim to have a growth percentage of 2% per year. This means that in now 2020, there is a 50.7 billion turnover, and they have the potential to reach 60.8 billion in 2030. The second largest market is Europe, with almost 30 billion in 2016. Europe have many industries. They have a Reman program, and they have the largest growth potential concerning the ERN and ERC, which are 2 remanufacturing associations. You're probably asking, why does Europe has the largest growth potential? That is because they started projects to encourage new businesses to start in Reman. They help existing Reman businesses to improve, and they are also creating awareness to increase demand. Well, that leads then to a potential reach of 90 billion in 2030. Then the third largest market is China. There has just been a research that mentioned a 30 billion turnover in 2020, and they have a potential to reach 70.4 billion in 2030. They've made a quite big growth in the last couple of years, because in 2017 it was only 17.6 billion. Of course, also a large or strong growth rate. That is because the strong governmental support of the last couple of years, and also there has been a large increase in car sales, which at the end also increases the remanufacturing. Where in Europe and the United States, there are many Reman programs in many industry. China is mainly focusing on the automotive industry, which is actually the biggest over there. Other sectors like railway, mining, marine, and IT are following, but are not that large at the moment. I must say these estimations has been made before COVID-19. So it can happen because at the moment the world is not looking great in terms of the industry, and that will be a bit less. However, let's see in 2030 what the actual numbers are going to be. Also, if we look at this forecast, that means that in 2030 the United States will not be the largest remanufacturing industry anymore, and that means that that is the case since the start of remanufacturing. Of course, these are forecasts, so yeah, we don't really know what's going to happen in the future. So let's find that out. Then I would like to tell you a bit about the history of the three regions. Remanufacturing started in the United States in 1940, because during the World War II there was a need of automotive and truck parts. However, the researchers were rare. Actually, then they started to make the cores new again, because this was cost saving, but it also saved a lot of resources. Quite fast after the introduction in the USA, Reman came to Europe, which started in the UK in Birmingham. The company Lucas brought it to Europe, and very quickly after that it spread to the rest of Europe. The United States and Europe had quite some years to develop the industry, and that also can be seen in the maturity of the industry nowadays. In China, it's a bit of a different story. Remanufacturing started in the 1990s, actually on a low scale. And in 2008, it became more popular. And that is because in 2008, the two pilot programs started, where only 50 remanufacturers were allowed in this program. And it was a test if China was able to set up a remanufacturing program, and from there on it slowly started to grow and grow. Actually, only the last 5 years there have been a tremendous growth in China, and that is because there has been a large increase in car sales. There is a fleet of 93.2 million cars that ran out of warranty in 2015. And that means that the maintenance peak starts about almost now, and that there will be an increase in the demand of auto parts. Furthermore, there's an increase in China because the Chinese government is supporting sustainable projects at the moment, which of course also increases the remanufacturing industry because that is part of the sustainable projects. If you are looking at the regions, in these three markets, in the United States, you see that the Northern America is the lead global Reman region. In Europe, you have originally also the manufacturing companies that are also quite large in the remanufacturing, which are Germany, UK, UK, and Italy, and France. In the last couple of years, we've seen a large increase from Poland. We see that a quite large increase on our exhibition. I think the Polish exhibition has grown with 15% in the last 2 shows. In China, there are 8 remanufacturing zones in Linjiang, Wujiao, Hejiang, and Guangzhou. Only in these 8 zones you are able to remanufacture. And also in these 8 zones, quite big remanufacturing plants have been set up. Next, what I'd like to show you is that there's quite some support from associations that are aiming to improve the remanufacturing globally. I've divided them into the 3 regions. There are quite some associations in the United States, in Europe, and in China. What do these associations do? They're promoting the growth of all sectors in remanufacturing industry. They are building a network to stay informed in remanufacturing technologies. They provide education and training. They talk with policymakers to improve trade, and they are trying to increase the awareness of the benefits of remanufacturing to the government, but also to the general public. I believe that there is one a common goal for associations, however, also for the remanufacturing to increase remanufacturing industry, and that is creating awareness. To be able to expand the remanufacturing industry, the public must be more aware of the advantages of remanufacturing. Ramtech was also quite interested of how aware people are, so the end user, how aware they are of remanufacturing, and therefore Ramtech conducted a research together with a couple of DOT associations named BOVAG, STIBA, and the RAI Aftermarket. And this research looked in, how much are the Dutch car owners aware of remanufacturing? It turned out that only 26% of the car owners did not know the term remanufacturing. And 66% of the car owners said that their workshop never suggested remanufactured parts. However, after we explained what remanufacturing is, 91% said that they would like to consider to make use of remanufactured parts. So this is really at the moment it's a challenge in remanufacturing, but it is really something that we must remember that the end user is not very much aware yet of remanufactured products, and this is something where we can make a large growth in the future. Associations are working on this to make people more aware. And what there has been done, there have been 6 associations. They've reached a common understanding of basic definitions, and these definitions enables it to better present views and solutions to the customer. I would like to show you these terms, these definitions. There has been made a definition of remanufacturing process, remanufacturing part, and a core. I think this presentation will be sent to you later on, so you can read through them more carefully. I believe that these standard terms are quite important because they make remanufacturing more clear and also more, if you understand what I mean, more real. Other trends in remanufacturing is what Rajiv also said is the EV and battery pack remanufacturing. And here you can think of electrical vehicles, but also electric bike where the battery needs to be remanufactured for. EV has got more and more important in the last couple of years, and the reason of that is, of course, that there are more EV of electrical vehicles manufactured. There are more on the market. EV and battery pack reman is a complete new process from that we know, and this requires different tooling, different data, and different skills and knowledge. You see quite some conferences at the moment about this topic, and also associations are trying to explain more and more about it. Another trend or something that we see in remanufacturing is market consolidation. This is happening more in the United States and Europe, which is happening that bigger companies take over the smaller companies to create a larger volume, and also bigger companies companies are taking over other companies to create a wider range. This is a good and a bad trend which is going on. Of course, if companies are getting bigger in volume, they will have a larger voice. This means that they can more easily reach policymakers. However, it also creates there are less players on the markets. And I believe that there should be a healthy competition. So I believe that there must be multiple companies in the industry. Another trend is robotized reman. Also, you see that more in the United States and in Europe. It is an introduction of robots within remanufacturing, and that the robots are supporting the people's labor. So, for example, support in mass work or in the heavy work. For example, if one movement is repeating, then this can be done by a robot as well instead of by a person. Also, the green movements is something that is a trend at the moment. This is more relevant in Europe than in other countries and in other regions, because Europe is very focusing on sustainability and circular economy. And what the remanufacturing industry tries to do is to become more part of the sustainability factor. If we look at China, they have some different trends that we see in the United States and in Europe. In China, you see more that there is a development going on in the reman zones. So the big factories that have been brought to the remanufacturing zones need some development. They are looking for testing and balancing machines. And they are looking for these machines from Europe and the United States. Also, China has some slight problems with the return logistics. And the problem there is that in China, a core is not defined as a valuable item. However, it's a scrap part. And because of this, the core is not often returned in the reman circle. And you need a core to remanufacture. I know that soon there will be announced that in China, a core will be defined as a valuable part. This will make import and export possible. So this can increase the core amount in China, which make it better to remanufacture. Also, what we see nowadays is that international companies are establishing a company in China. International companies are very good aware of how the core return must be done. So they help the Chinese companies here a bit. Another trend in China is the certification. Certifications are now handed out to approved remanufacturers. This is done to keep the quality standard high, and this also encouraged the trust that the core is remanufactured and as good as new. The next slide, which I would like to show you, are other markets that are now increasing in remanufacturing. While the United States and Europe take up the largest activities in remanufacturing for already years, there are several other countries that have been rapidly developing their reman industries. For example, Malaysia, Korea, Japan, Denmark, and Brazil are markets that we need to look at because they are rapidly increasing as well. And of course, I hope that India will follow in this list soon. I would like to conclude that there are three major regions in the world, if we're looking at remanufacturing, which are the United States, Europe, and China. The biggest challenge at the moment is creating awareness to be able to grow the remanufacturing industry. There are many associations that would like to help the industry, and if there are any questions or whatsoever, you can always contact them. There are several companies outside these three regions that are rapidly increasing their remanufacturing programs, and I believe that we should learn from each other. The United States and Europe are quite far in their developments. Therefore, I think, for example, India can learn from these two markets. If you'd like to know more about Rematech or like to know more about the remanufacturing industry, you can always go to our website and click to register for Rematech news. Thank you for your attention. This concludes my presentation, and I think I give the word back to Rajiv.
Thank you, Yorien. We've had some questions come in. We'll try to get to a couple of them. I'd like to, in the interest of time, from your perspective, Anirban, in terms of the bird's eye view that you have of the circular economy, and it would be wonderful to hear your thoughts.
All right. So let me get going. I must warn everybody who's on the platform today listening to us that after René, Rajiv, and Yorien, who have distilled and served the spirit of Reman very well, I have literally very little new to add. So I will put it in a new bottle and perhaps put a little flavoring. Let me begin by mentioning that as a consumer, I have bought 2 pre-owned certified vehicles and 1 pre-certified audio speaker. Out of these 3, 1 car and 1 speaker have worked brilliantly. The other car worked well, but the engine blew up on one occasion. Now, obviously, somebody had not remanufactured the product well and had probably done a little shortcut in the process. René explained very nicely how remanufacturing can be a part of the circular economy ecosystem. In India, the size of the circular economy ecosystem is expected to be somewhere between $500 billion to $1 trillion. René's number was somewhere in 600 billion. Depends entirely on which report you're reading. But, like he said, you've got to take these numbers with a pinch of salt. Recognize that it is going to be a large ecosystem and that there are opportunities lying within that ecosystem. Now, here is one small idea of the opportunity that lies within that ecosystem. If there is 5% increase in resource circularity in only 5 waste streams, so 5% increase in resource circularity in 5 waste streams, we will end up creating more than 1 crore jobs. Investments of 10 lakh crores will be initiated, and more than 770 million metric tons of material will not show up at the landfill. These are very significant impacts, both from an economy as well as an environment perspective. And this does not even count the benefits that we will have in saving energy, saving water, reducing emissions, and all the innovation that it will create. So this is the ecosystem in which remanufacturing can play a part. Now, obviously, what is remanufacturing is a critical question at this stage of the industry, and every speaker has addressed it. So here is my 2 pice bit. So let's say you have a pressure cooker and you give it to your child who is setting up a new household to use. Your child starts using the pressure cooker. Simple case of reusing a product. Let's move on. Now you give your child your pressure cooker. While trying to use it, your child finds that the safety valve is not working. So he or she takes it to a repair center that changes the safety valve, and the pressure cooker starts working very well. You now have an example of what repair means, not that you did not know earlier. Let's now say that your child, having used the old pressure cooker for a while, decides to buy a new pressure cooker, goes to the shop, returns the old pressure or gives the old pressure cooker in exchange and buys a new one. The shopkeeper takes the old pressure cooker and sends it to a manufacturing unit, which looks at that pressure cooker, realizes that that thing that sits on top of the pressure cooker, which is part of the safety system, is not working properly, so changes it. But doesn't stop at that. It finds out that the rubber gasket is a little worn out, so it replaces that. Does a little bit of grinding and machining to make the whole pressure cooker appear as new. Maybe the coating was not proper anymore, so it reapplies a new coating, and then gives this pressure cooker, which is almost as good as new, to a shopkeeper to sell. This is an example of remanufacturing, where not only the part that was not working is replaced, but parts that were worn out were refreshed, shall we say, and you ended up with a product which was as good as new, and if it was remanufactured by the manufacturer, would probably carry a similar warranty to that of a new pressure cooker in itself. So if this is the difference between remanufacturing, repairing, and reuse, just 3 of René's 12 R's, if I start differentiating between all 12, we will not go home today. So just 3 to give you an idea of remanufacturing. What would the advantages be? Now we've talked about it at length, so I'll quickly go through them and stop on the ones that seem to be new. So cost of manufacturing, obviously lower, so you could get it at a lower price. In the case of remanufactured parts, there could be lower downtime for equipment, old equipment for which it's difficult to get parts, but you can always remanufacture the old one. There is a distinct upgrade possibility when you are remanufacturing a part. Suppose the part has over time evolved and the design has changed, you could actually get a part with the new design. So in remanufacturing, there is a upgrade possibility. Quality is assured, which is why you can get warranty from the manufacturer. And of course, there is a lot of advantage to the environment because you're not using virgin material. The amount of energy required to remanufacture the part is much less from an LCA perspective than it is to make the new part and so on. So these are all the advantages, one or two of which we talked about for the first time now. However, if these are all the advantages, why isn't remanufacturing becoming a big hit and a massive success? And why is it not scaling up much faster than it is so far? Well, you have heard in the previous presentation that there is an issue of reverse logistics. It's not easy. We are having the same conversation in the plastic area, in the area of conversation on plastics. We're trying to get back plastics for extended producer responsibility is proving to be a bottleneck. Similar thing exists in remanufacturing. There is also the question of what condition the part or the core comes back for remanufacturing. Depending on the condition on which it comes back, it may be suitable for remanufacturing and maybe it won't be suitable for remanufacturing. Given these two uncertainties, there is a lot of uncertainty on continuity of supply. So you can say that I'm going to make 1 million parts in a month when you're manufacturing a new part, but it is very difficult to say that I'm going to make, say, 10,000 units every month, because a lot of it depends on reverse logistics and the condition of the part, condition in which you get the part back for remanufacturing. And then there is also the issue of taxation. In India, what GST would you levy on a remanufactured part vis-a-vis a new part? If you keep in mind that the value addition when you're making a new part is much higher than the value addition that you do when you're remanufacturing a part, because a lot of the value exists on the core or the returned part, let's say, or the returned equipment or device that you are trying to improve. So there is also the issue of taxation. So all of these, reverse logistics, condition of the recovered part, continuity of supply, and taxation, get in the way of creating a robust remanufacturing ecosystem. And maybe this is why in so many years we find a remanufacturing ecosystem in only about a half a dozen countries around the world, as Yorien explained to you so nicely. In fact, till recently, it was almost entirely United States and the European Union. And because of the issues that I mentioned to you, the industries which have lent themselves to remanufacturing, or where remanufacturing has actually prospered, is aerospace, heavy duty, outdoor, and auto parts. Mostly because there was an ecosystem in which it was possible to get hold of reverse logistics to, ensure that you get more of remanufacturable parts and so on. Yes, it has increased in scope now, reconditioned tires, IT equipment. Rajiv talked about printer cartridges in India, which are more refilled than remanufactured. For a long while, I've been in the IT industry discouraging people from buying refilled cartridges at that time. Now that I'm in circular economy, I have a different perspective. But of course, that cartridge needs to work well. It needs to print well. And as long as it does that, it should be acceptable and useful. Well, yes, one other issue that I want to mention before I close is that, every time we send our car for servicing or repairs, when it comes back, I don't know if your service unit does this to you. My car comes back with the parts, the old parts that have been replaced. It's an old practice now in India, and the practice exists so that you don't ask the question, did you really replace the part, or are you just charging me for it? So they send you back the old unused parts for which you have absolutely no use. So you just pick it up and put it into the dustbin. Now, since I belong to an automotive manufacturing organization, and now I'm in sustainability, I keep asking the question, is there nothing that we can do with these parts? Can't they be put to some useful use? The biggest blockade or the biggest bottleneck is the fear of malpractice. The fear that parts which are not perfectly suitable to be put back into a vehicle will be put into some packaging. For all you know, it will be put into packaging that looks very similar to that of the manufacturer himself, and then sold in the marketplace. In the automotive market, you would have seen the word genuine written on parts on many, many occasions, simply because there is the fear of non-genuine parts. And this is when remanufacturing has not even become a big thing. So there is always that fear of malpractice happening. And this is a conversation that we in Mahindra are having with our service department and our dealers to figure out, can we do resource efficiency without becoming prey to different forms of malpractice? Maybe we will find a way, and maybe, like Yorien said, we will be able to give a fillip to remanufacturing in India, beginning with auto parts, if nothing else. Thank you very much. You would have noticed that the wine is old, but I hope you like the flavor and the bottle. Thank you very much.
I want to quickly open it up to any comments from René or Yorien. And what I will do is I will follow up with some of the questions that are in the chat at a later time. So please do reach out to me and we'll do our best to have your questions answered offline. But I'd like to invite René and perhaps Yorien for any final reflections here before we sign off. And thank you, Anirban, for bringing it down to a level that takes us out of the technicalities and brings us into the realm of the real.
Yes, Rajiv, if I may just come in and maybe also reflect on Anirban, I think very valid perspectives. My sense is that probably there's more remanufacturing happening than we actually know. Because ultimately, if remanufacturing is bringing it back to as good as before, then we will see remanufacturing happening, and particularly in products which are on a service basis. So like copiers, printers, and other components, the drums, the transformers, the trucks which are heavy duty equipment, which is on a lease basis and so on. So I think that maybe we might be surprised that there are more solutions, and people are just doing it because it makes good business sense, and they want to maybe avoid a little bit of the perception that it's bad, but they just give a guarantee. So if as a consumer you get a guarantee, so why should you bother whether this has been used once or not at all before? So I think that is probably there. But I think you're perfectly right that the big challenge will be to get sufficient quantity of high quality parts back so that you can achieve some economies of scale in the remanufacturing. And that will be a challenge, but that is equally a challenge for recycling or for resource recovery, as you were saying, with plastics or with e-waste or other components which are there. But I think that we just, my take on this, and maybe that's a UNIDO take on this, that is, if we look at manufacturing, there is a twin to it, which is remanufacturing. And we should kind of start to look at it in connection, not necessarily say that remanufacturing is the solution for everything because we will fall flat, but see where are the niches that something can be developed, because what you're saying, the 5% is really a big chunk and really worth doing that. So that may be as a comment from my side, and thank you very much.
Yeah, I would like to add something as well. I understand that there are still a lot of questions and still a lot of processes that are not well organized in India yet, if we are looking at remanufacturing. Like I said in my presentation at the end, there is a possibility to learn from each other. The core return in Europe and the United States is well established. There are even some companies who are implementing those processes in a company. Where India, I think, can learn from as well. Also having certificates for remanufacturers that the end users get to see, okay, they are a professional remanufacturer, and the quality that they deliver is good. It can be something that must be established in India as well. I also believe that it's a good idea for a next webinar, which I believe will be on automotive, that we invite someone from Europe to maybe explain a bit more on these processes.
Thank you. Thank you, Yorien. So I'm going to invite all our folks to save the date. We have a webinar tentatively slated for the 22nd of October, specifically looking at circularity in the Indian automotive industry. So we're in the planning stages right now, and this will be an opportunity to do a deeper dive. And also we are announcing the release of a publication today. It's a monograph or a white paper titled "The Case to Advance Remanufacturing in India," and that is available on Recreate's website, where a version of the document will be available for download. So that's just kind of a snippet of what's available in terms of the document. I want to thank all of our speakers for joining us today, and I want to thank all of you for signing up and being part of this conversation. We look forward to more of these interactions going forward, and engaging more of the stakeholders as part of this discussion across the spectrum. Thank you again, everybody. René, Yori, Anirban, thank you for joining us, for giving up your time so generously. See you next time.
See you. Thank you very much.